Chapter 11 is a significant point in the narrative because it's where the monster starts giving us his account of things. And it'll last for the next 6 chapters. So if we're thinking of this as a framed or embedded narrative, we're in the very middle of it all, with Walton telling us what Victor has told him that the monster has told him. It's all a bit vague at the beginning, but it's what we should expect, really. Can you remember the first few moments of your life? As the creature says, it is with considerable difficulty that I remember the original era of my being. All events of that period appear confused and indistinct. He learns to experience the world around him using his senses, discovering brooks, berries, thirst, light and dark, cold and heat. It's quite an overwhelming experience for him. Look at how Shelley emphasises this through the use of polysyndetic coordination. That's just a way of saying she uses the word "and" a lot. In the sentence, I felt light and hunger and thirst and darkness. Innumerable sounds rang in my ears, and on all sides various senses saluted me. The monster is portrayed in this chapter as an innocent child, experiencing the world for the first time. His emotional response to the beauty and wonder of the natural world is typically romantic, when he says, I was delighted when I first discovered that a pleasant sound, which often saluted my ears, proceeded from the throats of the little winged animals who had often intercepted the light from my eyes. In fact, in many ways, as we've mentioned before, the monster is a kind of double or parallel character of Victor himself. The idea of characters being presented as doubles, or doubling, is another typically Gothic feature of the novel. It's not just in his love of nature, though, but also, I think, in this chapter, in his scientific perspective on things, and the kind of language that he uses when he's talking about things. We know that Victor is a scientist, used to observing things, testing things, analysing the results, but look at the way the monster speaks when he relates his experience of discovering fire. He uses words and phrases like, I examined the materials, I reflected on this, I discovered, I observed the discovery of this element. It's the language of a scientist. And back in chapter 7, remember, Victor makes himself and steers us towards us, linking him to his monstrous creation, when he refers to him as my own spirit, let loose from the grave and forced to destroy all that was dear to me. Shelley's use of doubling here can lead us to compare, contrast, and ultimately even consider the monster to be the dark side of Victor's psyche. The final thing we need to focus on in this chapter is the Lacy family. The simplicity of their rustic lives is held up by Shelley as a romantic ideal. They live this plain, very straightforward life, providing for themselves, working on the land, enjoying nature and music and each other. They are a representation in Shelley's eyes of the perfect family, wearing simple clothes, carrying buckets of milk, gathering vegetables from the garden, and above all, enjoying each other's company and the music of the old man in the evenings, who began to play and to produce sounds sweeter than the voice of the thrush or the nightingale. Above all, though, Shelley uses them to highlight the isolation of the monster. He's already been attacked and grievously bruised by stones and many other kinds of missile weapons as he sought food from one of the villages he encountered. And now he resorts to hiding in a hovel attached to the de Lacy's cottage. The sense of segregation and isolation is highlighted by Shelley when we're told that the monster barricaded himself in with stones and wood, and is only able to observe the family through an almost imperceptible chink, through which the eye could just penetrate. He's very much an outsider, observing but not allowed to interact. And Shelley's reinforcing that very much in a physical way. Prejudice, irresponsibility and lack of empathy repeatedly seem to lead the creature to a place where he is abandoned, isolated, rejected, and misunderstood. Shelley's doing a pretty good job, though, of stirring up our sympathy for a murderer.